Well, Lucy, let's start off with a quick intro. Just who is Lucy and what is it that you do?
So I am a journalist turned PR coach, and I run PR for the People, which is a PR agency, and also I coach lots of business owners on how to do their own PR as well and take it in house.
You do. Honestly, the first time I saw PR for the people, I'm like, hell yeah, that's what a company should
Yeah.
be called, because it is for the people.
Yeah,
It's
it's one of those really nice business names that just came to me. Like the second I thought of the business, I just knew what the name was going to be, which is always really nice when it happens like that.
yes, like
Mm.
Misfit Founders.
Yeah.
Now, disclaimer here: we also have a relationship. We actually work together.
Mhm.
You're helping me a lot with the, PR stuff and putting Misfit Founders brand and name out there.
Mhm.
So if
It's going to be famous. I'm putting it
if
out there
if
now.
it's working, and Misfit Founders becomes famous,
Mhm.
we all know who to praise. If it
Mhm.
doesn't, we all know whose fault is it.
No pressure.
No
Jesus.
pressure. just I just put you on the spot publicly now.
Yeah. Watch
um,
this space, guys. It's going to be fine.
but the thing is that I actually quite enjoyed working with you in the few months that we started working with,
Mhm.
and the reason why is not just because you've been doing this for 10 years and you're super connected, and we'll get into that, and you know all of the sources and so on, but also you have a certain type of way of making people feel comfortable, and just making them um, trust that you know what you're doing in a
Aw,
sense. So every single
that's
time I'm
nice.
like, oh, here's these things, oh, here's that, and you tell me about this, and I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds cool and so on. But I also think that I'm a massive headache to work with.
You're not. You think about everything quite deeply, and that's not a bad thing. Like I'd always rather communicate with a client or a business relationship. I think that's the best way to be.
Do you usually
Mm.
get people, customers like this that are like very,
Difficult customers.
yeah, anal about certain things? Oh, I don't want to sound like this. Oh, I don't know about that publication and so on.
Yeah,
You
so
do?
it happens all the time. Yeah, especially with PR, because I think people, it's their reputation, right? So people
Mm.
are often worried about how they're going to be portrayed in the media, or, they don't really understand what PR is. So they have a lot of questions. I get that a lot. So yeah, do not feel alone in that.
Okay, cool.
But
I feel better then.
yeah.
Okay, so tell me a bit about your background before we get into how did you come up with this idea of running your own agency. I'm also interested in the whole concept of empowering people to do
Hmm.
their own PR. But first, a bit about your background.
So my background. So both my parents are just going right back to it.
Yeah.
Both my parents are teachers, and they both had been teaching for like 30 or 40 years. So not an entrepreneurial family at all,
Mm.
but I kind of grew up with both of them moaning about their jobs and hating their jobs for like 30 or 40
Okay.
years. So I've always kind of, you know, if been one to know that if I'm not liking a particular job or a situation, then the best thing to do is move on and try something else, because I kind of grew up seeing them be unhappy in their jobs for like 30 or 40 years, and I knew that's something I didn't want. Um, but then, yeah, when I went to school and university, I did go down the really traditional route of, if you go to university, you're going to get a good job. And I studied journalism and English literature. Got a first, which I don't know how I pulled off with the amount of partying I did. And
So you're a proper book nerd.
oh my God, yeah, it's totally. Like I used to be late for school because I loved reading, and still do absolutely like adore books and magazines and reading and writing. Um, and yeah, I guess that's kind of what led me into journalism. And started out writing for the Metro in London on the news desk, on the lifestyle desk, sorry, when I was 22 maybe. And I had to churn out, I think it was between 7 or 8 stories a day for the website, which was a bit of a shock.
To write 7 or 8 stories every single day. Jesus.
Yeah, so it wasn't really like the proper kind of journalism that I'd really thought it was going to be.
Wait, what kind of stories were these?
So it was oh god, anything and everything. So it was lifestyle, which means anything to do with living. So literally could be like dating trends or new food trends or the
Right.
best 10 new restaurants to try in London or anything to do with wellness. Yeah, anything and everything. But it was quite kind of like clickbaity. And so the main aim was to drive like readers and clicks for the website
Yeah.
rather than kind of having the time to investigate different stories that you wanted to do.
So that was your slaving away moment, getting into this kind of like digital publications. Was it digital or was it a printed publication?
So I worked for the website team,
Right.
which was completely separate to the print team. And a lot of newspapers do work that way, I think. Yeah, so it was just for online. But yeah, it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. So it was at that point I thought, you know what, the other side of journalism is PR. So I will try to go into what in the industry is known as the dark side of journalism.
Dark side, the money making side.
Oh, you know, PRs just get such a bad rep, honestly. Like there was one of the Oscar winners recently thanked her PR in her speech. I can't remember her name now. And all of the PR industry were like, this is amazing. She's actually thanking the people that like are behind the scenes and often kind of get a lot of shit. And can I swear? Or
Yeah. That's anything goes. But wait, why is PR seen in such a bad light? I don't get it.
So I think like historically PR has a reputation of being kind of twisting the truth and kind of spinning the truth, and that's kind of, I guess some people have done that, but like in any industry there's going to be good eggs and there's going to be bad eggs. So PR can actually be used for such good things, like, you know, it's raising awareness of the things that need to be talked about, and you know, it can be given a voice to people that don't normally have a voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think PRs definitely don't deserve the bad rep that they get.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing a great job in promoting a good cause and also making me look good. It's a different story. But yeah, no, I think I understand why, because you can wash someone's image and have it with PR. You can have them sit on this pedestal as this, you know, perfect human being and so on, where that's never the reality of things, right?
Definitely not. And I think the key to PR these days is not being perfect. It's kind of being relatable, and it's having a story and having flaws, and if you make a mistake, it's owning up to it. So I think good PR has completely switched around from what it maybe used to be 20 years ago, when celebrities would just want like that perfect photo, you know, in a magazine, and now it's all about sharing what goes on behind the scenes. Like I always kind of mention the Beckham's documentary that they did recently, as an example of
Tell the truth.
good PR. Yeah.
That became one of the biggest memes, but it's also great that what's her name?
Victoria.
Victoria is
Posh.
Victoria Posh. I wanted to call her Posh, but I was like, let me not. You know, that she's embracing the meme, and she made her own merch with my dad drives a Range Rover.
Oh my god, it's a PR dream, honestly. Like, so yeah, the Beckhams weren't having the best time with their PR
Mm.
and their kind of relatability. So obviously having the best PR team that money could buy, they did a Netflix documentary. But even though obviously every one of us won't be able to do a Netflix documentary, there are other
Speak for
things.
yourself.
Apart from you, Biro. There are like definitely little lessons that we can learn from it.
Yeah.
So you know, they really strove to like show the domestic side of their life and their relatability. And Beckham kind of, you know, roasting his wife.
Mm.
And what was more relatable than that?
Oh yeah.
And more kind of like, look, we're just the same as you guys. And I think, yeah, as an absolute masterclass in coming across as relatable,
Yeah.
and showing that side.
To be honest, that's the one thing that PR is good for washing your image. When I say washing, I mean cleaning your image, right? Making you feel it look more relatable and so on. Because at the end of the day, we are, right? So, and I don't mean we as me. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not like right. But I'm
Me and the
in general
Beckhams.
as humans. Everyone has their own habits that, you know, they might be at a certain level in their life and their fame and wealth and so on, but they probably still have a lot of the habits that you and I have, right, in a sense. And conveying that is great because it creates relatability. But the one thing that I've noticed, which honestly I don't think is fair, and I've been told this, right? I have a nice house, I have a nice car, I've sold my business and I was able to afford certain things. And, I don't shy away from saying that, right? I'm living my life, spending my hard-earned money
Yeah,
and
you've
so on.
worked damn hard for it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
but, I've been advised not to post, don't wear watches
Don't wear watches.
when you're recording. Don't post your car online and things like that. And I think this advice was from people that, in a sense, wanted my best interest at heart, but also thinking of creating that relatability with the audience that's watching these. And I've been conflicted at times about this thing, right? Like, here I am, with all my expensive gear in my poshy, fireplace, doing a podcast for aspiring founders that, there might be at the start of their journey, struggling with certain things, and I made it, right? In a sense, am I the most relatable with some of the audience that's watching these podcasts? Potentially not. I know I have a lot of things that I relate, and I'm coming from suffering and this and that, and just failing businesses and challenged and scratching my head around certain things. I've been through that, and I continue to be through that while building other businesses and even doing Misfit Founders. But I don't agree with the other extreme, right? I hate the whole flaunting your wealth and posting, living through Instagram, or just posting your holidays all the time and, your expensive watches and kind of like being super flashy and so on.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hate that extreme, but I also don't relate that much to the, be as modest as you can. Don't wear anything.
No, 'cause
Dress down to be more relatable
Yeah,
to people that you're talking to and so on. I'm somewhere in between. If I like a watch, I'm gonna wear that watch. If
Yeah.
I like a piece of clothing, I'm gonna wear it on camera as well. I don't.
Absolutely. I think the key to it is just being you, and just doing what you would normally do and not changing that like one way or the other to try and please people. Because also you are really inspiring. Like you've got such an amazing.
No, I'm not. We're just talking about that. I'm a middle-aged white man that has a very mediocre character. Yeah.
No, but your success story with business is really
Yes.
inspiring. And I think that is something that people want to see. So I don't think that you should shy away from that at all.
Yeah, but it's again, it's interesting because again, yes, you're right. You know that Netflix episode is I mean, they do share some of that, because Victoria's at one point talking about going and doing her tan or this or this. I was like, well,
Hmm.
I'm going out. Where are you going? Oh, I'm busy. I was like, yeah, you're busy going and doing your nails and living the good life and so on. But it is very much the narrative there is make it as relatable as possible,
Hmm.
um, which is great. I think that's what a lot of PR people will tell you.
Hmm.
And I'm surprised how you didn't tell me to take down the watch or wear more Misfit Founders t-shirts.
Can you dress like a misfit, please? No, like you're not wearing like head to toe Versace or anything like that, unless I'm missing something. But like, I don't think that I don't think you do come across as overly flashy. So
Okay,
if you do, then I will tell you.
okay,
Don't worry.
I'm happy because again, I've been, for me, I don't care, right? I
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna be the way I am. Uh, but because I've been told, oh well, if you want to build and spread the message of it's okay this and that, and you're talking to various people, try not to, maybe dress down, wear a t-shirt, a baggy t-shirt, be as humble as you can, and so on.
Mm.
And I've been a bit self-conscious in a sense because I'm like, no, I do wear baggy t-shirts, and I can be a hobo at home from time to time. That's why I launched
It's my favorite thing about working for yourself is
yeah, exactly. That's why I
being
launched
comfy.
sweatpants and
Yeah,
so on
I
because
love
I
it.
wear them all the time.
Hmm.
But I have such a there's range in my character in a sense.
Hmm.
Like I have days where I feel I want to dress up, and there's days when I want to dress down and so on. So I don't want to be restricted. Oh, I'm on camera today, so I need to dress down
Yeah,
or anything like that.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I am such a fan of like in my first job, my first corporate PR job, I had to
Hmm.
basically wear a suit every day and heels every day. So for like 2 years, so I hated that. So this is yeah, having the freedom to decide what you wear is brilliant.
Oh yeah. So I suppose that's why you decided to work for yourself. You wanted to dress down.
Yeah, it's just the number one reason.
Before we get into the reason why you started your own business, I have a very weird question.
Hmm.
And this is my own, thinking, just thinking out loud. Were your parents stringent with you growing up?
With in what sense?
As in with your education, with how you conduct yourself in general? Were there stringent parents?
Yeah, they were quite strict. Yeah. So when we came to do A levels, I remember I wanted to do dance and fashion and all of the like fun creative subjects. And my parents were like, no, you should definitely do. I think I ended up doing like biology, psychology, English literature, which is kind of studious without being too like creative, I
Mm.
guess. Um, and yeah, I think at my A levels I got kind of B's and C's, and they were really disappointed because um, they knew that I was capable of getting like A's and things, which I definitely wasn't at that time. Like maybe if none of the distractions that it had existed, um, but yeah, they were quite strict in that way. Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking
Hmm.
is, and I was curious because I have a couple of friends that have parents that are teachers, either one of them or both of them. I don't think I've ever heard of someone that doesn't have a parents that are teachers
Hmm.
that weren't a level of strictness and stringent with their children, and very you have to be like this, be careful when you go out, be back home by this time, and quite stringent parents. So it seems like there's a
Mm.
pattern there. I don't know if it's related to being teachers and teaching
Yeah. Oh, I don't
kids.
know. I've never thought about that. My dad was a PE teacher, so he was very relaxed.
Right, okay.
But my mum was a primary school teacher, and yeah, she was not so relaxed.
I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I had friends that had teachers. Like their mom was a teacher in school, in our school,
Hmm.
and
Oh God, no.
I
I
knew
never had that
them,
experience.
and I knew that they were like the, you know, you have to stay away from that teacher because they're evil. And I
Yeah.
used to visit them at their home, and I'll be like, "Is your mom around?"
Scary mum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, but what made you move from just regular publication, like from publications, from articles and so on, in writing for magazines to PR? What got you excited about that? Or
So
not necessarily excited, but what was the story there?
yeah, so PR is is very closely related to journalism. So I kind of saw it as a bit of a kind of step sideways, and also there is a lot more. I don't know why this is, but there's so much more money in PR than there is journalism. Even though we can't have one without the other, and journalists are obviously really talented people as well, doing all of the features that PRs are so desperate for. Um, so yeah, so I found a job in luxury travel PR in London and applied for that and got it. And that was amazing because I was just kind of, living in London for the first time. I was going to all of these fancy hotels, meeting all of these journalists, and yeah, kind of like really immersed in the corporate PR world, which is not one I'd want to stay in forever because it was quite stressful. But I think like I'm just such a big fan of trying out as many different things as you can in life to get as many different experiences as you can. And I think the worst thing that you can do is stay still and not do anything. So yeah, I'm really glad I had that time in my suit.
What was stressful of being in your suit?
So going into board meetings where I was the only kind of young woman, um, and kind of as a 22, 23-year old woman, amongst kind of lots of older men that were like in their 50s. Kind of that was a bit of a baptism of fire
Mm.
of kind of speaking in meetings and things like that. Um, Presenting to clients was stressful, and in PR agency life as well, you're always kind of fighting to keep those clients as well, and hoping that no one else poaches them. And PR agencies are notoriously really pressured environments. And even later when I went on to work in house for a company, a big hospitality company, that was again very pressured environment as well. Had some horrible bosses.
Where's the pressure coming from in this corporate PR world? What are the sources of those pressure moments? Because
Mm.
so I've worked in a lot of pressure environments, but I worked in environments where pressure was organic because of ABC kind of dependencies and things that were of urgency and this and that. I also
Mm-hmm.
worked in environments where there was kind of like fake pressure, virtual pressure, like
Mm-hmm.
just manufactured pressure
Mm-hmm.
because people just wanted to leadership just wanted to push their employees as to the maximum and
Mm.
get the most profits for in the least of time, no specific reason, just because they wanted more money. So
Yeah.
like manufactured pressure. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, in PR
Mm-hmm.
and in the corporate world, where was that pressure coming from? Why was it pressure?
So it depends on the client, because some clients kind of trust the process and understand that PR does take months, if not years, to work really well. And it's a process of building relationships with the media. So that's never going to be something that's kind of instant. And if you get a client who understands that and is kind of trusts you, then that's great. But then other times you'll get a client that's, has maybe a business that's not doing anything very interesting, and they're kind of demanding, like, why am I not on the front page of the Times today?
Right, I see.
And they're not willing to kind of work with you to generate news stories, because that's something I think not many people know, is that you can actually generate news stories for your business if there's not that many interesting things happening. You can create your own surveys, you can put on your own events, you can do partnerships, and there's lots of different ways of actually generating your own news. But yeah, so it depended on the client. But then PR is also quite a stressful job to work in as well, because you can't actually control if the journalists write about your client or not at the end of the day. Obviously you can use all of your skills to make it the most likely that it's going to be, and to make the client the most attractive to the journalists, but you can't hold a gun to their head and say, you must write this article now. And I've had so many times where, I've had a journalist from, the Times or the Guardian that's interviewed a client of mine, and then they've just, decided not to write the feature, or their editors decided to go with something else for that day. Or there's been a big news story that's kind of meant that this other news story is not relevant anymore. And when that happens, it's horrible. But then,
Do you get told off by the client in a sense? Was it like, oh, you didn't, you promised me this, and look, we lost it. You didn't do enough to preserve that story. Do you get those kind of remarks?
I don't think they even dig that deep. I think they just
Really?
think, like, you're the PR person, you should be able to make this happen. And as much as that is my job, that's just not the reality sometimes.
Yeah. So when you were working in corporate PR, you mentioned you were in these rooms. You were young, 20 something, in rooms full of old dudes.
Yeah.
As you usually find yourself in the corporate world. Why was that? Was it because, I mean, were people kind of like your peers in basically working in PR as well? You were working for this bigger PR agency, and were PR managers and agents as well, or was this customers?
So this was clients and customers. So I would say, I think something like 70 or 80% of PR people are women.
Okay. That's what I was asking, because I didn't want it to make the assumption, but most of the PR people that I know are women.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know why that is, actually. It's quite interesting, isn't it? No, so this was mostly like the owners of big companies or hotels. The owners of different companies that I was working for.
How were you treated?
I was
You were
treated...
You were very, very young, right?
Yeah. For the most part, really, really good.
Okay.
I had my boss was very old school, and she used to say, like, make sure you keep your suit jacket on and cover up your tattoos, so you don't put off so you don't put off the people in the managers of the hotels. So that was quite funny. And then sometimes in other big meetings, she'd just say, like, let me do the talking, and so I just sit there and just not say anything and feel a bit weird about it.
So when you were working with customers, how was that relationship? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm fishing here. And the reason why I'm fishing is because I've been in the corporate world. I am not a woman in my 20s, but I
No,
know
you're not.
plenty of them. And a lot of them had pretty horrendous experiences where, and I call them horrendous because even the mildest subliminal kind of like interaction, sorry, even the mildest interaction that kind of like conveys very subliminally misogyny, to me that's extremely disgusting. And I've seen that quite a lot in this dynamic of corporate world, where there's someone senior that's in their 40s 50s, and they're dealing with, working with, manage, let's say, someone, a young woman that's in their 20s and so on, and that kind of like sense of authority, and you know nothing, and this and that. So that's what I'm asking, because usually when I hear that you had to work with a lot of people in the corporate world, older, and I'm not saying that not everyone's evil or bad or anything like that. And honestly, a lot of people that I met that have been a bit misogynistic towards, or treating someone a bit different, they didn't even realize that they were doing it. It
Yeah.
was just like this,
It's unconscious
growing
bias.
up in this male dominated industry and working with dudes all the time, and doing things that they don't even realize that they do, or talking in a certain way they don't even realize that they do it. So that's why I was asking. Sorry for digging
No,
here.
yeah, I think that it's a really good, it's a really interesting subject. I think I was in a meeting one day with, this was in another job, where I had a creative team that was both men and women. And one of my female colleagues secretly did this timer test of timing how long each person spoke in the meeting, and how much kind of airtime each person had. And I think she did this for like 5 meetings or something, and found that it was men talking for like 80% of each meeting. And then she brought that to HR, and as a company we really tried to work that out. So yeah, it's definitely still a problem, even in companies that think they're progressive. Like,
Yeah.
I think, as you said, people don't even realize that they're doing it sometimes. But when you're in a meeting, if you're a man, if you can just think, oh, there's a woman that's sitting next to me and she hasn't had much airtime this meeting, I'm gonna let her speak. Like, I think that would be an amazing thing for
Now
any
you
men
make
watching to
now
do.
you're making me feel bad, because I feel that when we interact, because of our relationship, I talk a lot.
I mean, you're my client. It's a bit different.
Yeah, true. No, but I've been there, done that. And the thing is, I'm a very chatty person, and I used to also feel what's it called? Fill silent time,
Feels
right?
like, oh yeah.
As in, like, if there was silence, I would just talk just to fill that silence. And I think it took me a long time to understand that it's okay to have moments of break of silence and so on, especially when you're working with people that are not very hoppy into conversation, and you need to give that space of thinking and replies, and kind of like allowing that. Some people get a lot more comfortable when there's silence and they can start talking, right?
Yeah.
So I had to learn the hard way that is a thing, and I shouldn't be just filling the silence, because if I do, then someone that's a bit more refrained from intervening or stopping you or talking over you, because there's a lot of people that don't do that. They just
Yeah.
continue to be silent.
They could just be waiting for their moment. Yeah, definitely.
So Would you say that you've had overall positive experience in the corporate world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think
You closed your eyes.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, like I probably had a better experience in the corporate world than I did in working. I worked in PR for the nightlife and hospitality industry.
Mm.
And I think I probably encountered more um, difficult bosses. And
You shouldn't hold yourself back, okay? Speak your mind. I'm sure people that were difficult bosses aren't watching Misfit Founders.
So, hopefully not. Yeah, I would say that was definitely a trickier industry to work in than the corporate world in some ways.
I don't know. It's a very controversial bit, but and I don't think I have the right to talk about the servicing gourmet industry and all of this. But most of my friends are from um, working in those kind of environments, and
Hmm.
the stories that I hear are
Yeah,
just
I mean, the nature of
horrendous.
working in a bar or I used to work for a group of nightclubs and music venues, which was amazing. It was such a fun job. But the statistics of anyone working in the music industry or the hospitality industry, I think there's a much higher rate of like substance abuse, a much higher rate of mental health issues, just because you're around the that environment of drinking and things so easily. So yeah, you do encounter some characters there, definitely.
I think it's that, and I think it's also like there's not that much schooling in management,
Hmm.
right? There's a lot of people that basically get promoted from, let's say, bartending or waitering or this or that into managing the
Hmm.
joint or managing the team or the shift or this or that, and
Mm.
working directly with the main manager and so on. And more often than not, and again, I'm not from this industry, I'm just talking from most of my friends be working in this industry. And
Mm.
what I hear is that most of the time, that preparation into managing,
Hmm.
very little to almost none.
Yeah.
So then you're coming without knowing how to work with people,
Hmm.
not knowing how to communicate, how to manage, how to structure, potentially work, how to deal with challenges with people. And most of the reason why most of my friends are exhausted on working in this industry is because of crappy, shitty managers
Mm.
that do dodgy things of, oh, this is my friend, I'm gonna promote, I'm gonna give them more shifts,
Hmm.
and well, I don't like you, so I'm gonna make your life a living hell working here, and so on. So this is like this kind of like not being trained into managing people and
Hmm.
running a venue or things like that, that's causing that. Of course, there's
Mm.
probably a lot of really good places that train
Hmm.
their people really well, but most of my friends don't work in those places. They work in the
Yeah.
most dodgy places where they telling me horror stories about their managers, about their colleagues, and I'm like,
Mm.
Jesus.
Well, I think managing people in itself is such a hard skill, and it's just one of those many things as well that when you start to run your own business, that you're like, oh, okay, this is another one of the like 10 million hats that I have to wear now.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, I can see why that happens.
Did you had to manage people when you were doing the PR? So
I
tell
did,
me,
yeah.
what was your entry point? Because I don't know the PR kind of like roles and responsibilities. So
Hmm.
what was your entry level job in PR, and what was the final job that you had, role, responsibilities, before moving into having your own agency?
Mm. So yeah, there's lots of different kind of sections that you can work in PR and kind of move up the ranks. So I started out as PR assistant, um, working in the corporate industry, and then PR executive, and then PR manager, and then you start to deal with all of the client-facing meetings, and manage other team members as well, and kind of train them, which is challenging, I think. And then I moved to be head of PR at the hospitality group, where it was kind of me just overseeing all of the PR strategy, and working with a team. And then that's where I got, after 5 years working there, I was made redundant. So that's where my PR journey working for other people kind of ended.
Oh, really? What? Why was that? What happened there?
So it was at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think I was just too expensive for the company, because obviously when you work for a company, every couple of years you have to get a pay rise.
Yeah. You have to. You want it to. We want to get a favor. It's not like, wow, you have to get it.
Not you have to, but I don't. Is there no?
Speaking like a true entrepreneur, I have to give
No,
people.
but oh my God, it's so nice not having to beg for a pay rise now.
Oh, yeah, true.
Oh my God, I think that's one of my favorite things again about working for yourself is the sky's the limit. When it comes to making money for yourself, obviously, that's not going to be like that all the time, but at least you've got that potential. Sorry, I've really diverted from your question.
So you were made redundant.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the pandemic was starting, and you were telling me what happened there with what? Oh, because you were expensive. But what did they downsize the PR team? Because you were head of PR, so you had how many people were you managing?
So I was we had a creative team assistant, and then we had an events person, music bookers. So I was kind of I wasn't really managing the team, but I was kind of sitting within the team and advising kind of everyone on what the PR strategy should be kind of within the business.
Yeah.
I think they ended up, even though in the contract they weren't allowed to do it, I think they ended up hiring someone a lot more junior for the same role, and kind of starting on what would have been my starting salary again.
Did you follow the company afterwards? We're not going to give any names and so on, but did you follow the company afterwards? How did they do with PR? After getting rid of their expensive professional.
Yeah, not very well at all, actually. Because I still had friends that worked there, and they were in the creative meetings, and the bosses were kind of moaning about the lack of PR that they got. So that was really nice for me.
Wait a minute. So you mean to tell me that paying extra money for senior people actually is worth it? Oh my goodness.
You pay for what's the saying? You get what you pay for. I think that's so true.
So that was okay. So that was when, what year was it? 2020, 2021? When was it?
When did the pandemic start? 2020? Yeah, and I think that was on the horizon as well. So I guess all hospitality companies at that time were just freaking out and getting rid of any expensive part of their business that they could.
Such a hit, especially in the hospitality industry. So many places closed down, fired everyone except for the founder and another person, and just went into hibernation until the whole ordeal was done.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, I feel that, being let go can be a burden on one. And you could see it as a stigma on yourself, it wasn't good enough. I was fired. I was let go.
Yeah.
But I think amongst the situations of being let go, downsizing, but then probably the most okay big let go is the pandemic. That's okay, well, there was absolutely no other way than to cut down on costs, because we're not making money as the kind of like the hospitality industry. I
Mm.
know I always call it gourmet industry when it's like, no, that's just restaurants, isn't it?
Yeah, that's just food,
Hospitality
fancy
is
food.
everything.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was not a nice time. I think anyone that's been made redundant will kind of recognize those feelings of like, oh, is it because I'm not good enough? Is it, you know, you just, yeah, basically just think you've not been good enough. And that's horrible. But I have to say that it really was one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because I would never have, I don't know if never, but I don't know if I would have ever made the jump to working for myself if I hadn't been made redundant at that time.
Really? So you weren't like, oh, one day I'm gonna have my business. You were quite
Not
comfortable
really,
with being a
no.
professional and working in the.
Yeah, so
Mm.
um, I had a few friends kind of come to me and say like, oh, would you help me with some PR? Which I did. I think a few freelance projects on the side, for them. And in the back of my mind, I think I was like, oh, do you know what? Like, you know, with the amount of word of mouth people I have coming to me, I could do this myself. But I think the thought of actually, you know, having to make my own money, rather than having a paycheck every month,
Mm-hmm.
that was really scary. So I don't know if I would have ever done it, or it would have been years and years before I had made the jump. Definitely.
So you are an employee at heart. We get that.
No. How dare you?
um, uh, right. No, I'm joking. But so you've never like you were happy. And to be honest, that it's not unfamiliar. I've heard this
Mm,
before, where people are like, "Oh, I was happy with my professional career path and so on. I just
mm,
bumped into this, and then that radically changed who I identify as. I identified as a
mm-hmm.
rather than working for a company and living the good 9 to 5 life to the tumultuous entrepreneur journey and so on.
Mm.
Was it being was it being let go the sole catalyst of you wanting to do this on your own? Or was there
Mm.
some other factors at play?
I think around the time, lots of my friends were starting their own businesses as well, my
Mm,
close friends.
okay, bad influence, I see.
And I think you kind of, you get to a place in your career if you work for other people when, you know, you've got that dream job, and you've got the jobs that you've always tried so hard to get, and then you kind of get to a point in maybe your late 20s, and you kind of think, oh, was this it? Like, I'm a bit unfulfilled, and I'm a bit bored.
Mm.
And I think a lot of my friends kind of got to that point at the same time. And I was quite lucky that, yeah, lots of my really close friends are really entrepreneurial as well. Like, one of them owns an architecture practice, one of them owns a mobile bar business, um, one of them's a, a designer. Like, yeah, lots of different businesses.
And they inspired you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that contributed to, but it was also the being let go.
Yeah,
You were like,
and having that
screw
space and
this.
time to think. Yeah, definitely, and having that space and time to think about like what I could do. Um, and yeah, I think definitely being inspired by other friends that were doing similar things.
And were you in London back then, or were you already in Brighton, moved to Brighton?
So I was in London over the pandemic. Um,
The worst place to be.
yeah, stuck in a house share with 6 other people and my ex.
Really? You're like 6 other people. Like you
Yeah.
were the extreme worst place to be.
I know
Yeah.
most people were like lonely, and I was like, get me away from these people immediately. Like, I saw way too much of them. No, they were lovely, but um, yeah. So I moved down to Brighton at the end of lockdown. Um, how many years ago? A couple of years ago now. But yeah, I'm so happy to be back here. It's my hometown. So Yeah, I love it here.
What made you move back here?
So I had a big relationship breakup, um, and also lots of my friends as well were moving out of London at the time, and always knew that I'd move back to Brighton one day,
Mm,
and when you've not got a job in London and you don't have like lots of your friends are leaving as well, then you're kind of like, what am I doing here? I just want to be somewhere that's a bit more peaceful,
yeah.
and living by the sea is just so amazing and good for the soul.
It's crazy how, you know, and I was talking to someone the other day about it. Uh, I feel that I've grew up as a professional in this in the previous era of work commuting, working in London, being a professional, taking the underground, going to work, the rat race,
Yeah.
right? And since the pandemic, so much has changed. You know, there's a lot of companies in London and other places they're kind of like trying to force their employees now to go back to
Bloody Rishi
butts in
Sunak.
seats and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that we're a bit past that. Like in the early days of the pandemic and so on, if it, I was missing a bit the human interaction, the being in the office, working
Hmm.
with your colleagues, because I've been an office rat, right?
Yeah.
I was there early morning
Hmm.
and they're leaving the last one to leave to close
Hmm.
the lights and so on, and all of the like the founders of the company that I worked before that can testify to that. I was like always in the office.
Yeah.
But I think at one point I got smart enough and I was like, okay, what does it cost me to commute to work? Okay, well, can I rent next door to my work? Well, yeah, but actually, from the cost of the commute and this and that and my time, I'll put a bit more money and work next door to
Oh
the office
wow,
where so it
that's
was just
amazing.
across the street from where I was living,
Mm.
which was great because it just like took the stress of the commuting away.
Yeah, I've
But
been there.
honestly, in the early days of the pandemic, I was having calls with people. We were chatting about working remote, all of this trend, and I was telling them, yeah, I like working remote, but I also miss being in the office and working in the office.
Hmm.
Now, it feels such a distant. It feels like a different era. It feels like
Hmm.
the time when we were the previous age of commuting and working in the office and so on.
Mm.
Um,
And it was kind of before. I feel like one good thing that came out of the pandemic as well is that employers kind of realized that they need to value self care for their
mm,
employees as well. Because yeah, I was the same. I was in offices that people would look at you look funny if you left before like 7 p.m. and that's not healthy.
oh yeah, 100%.
Mm.
I agree with that, and it. I think it also takes a toll if you're stressed all the time about work,
Hmm.
and just being in a good light with your employer and your colleagues and
Mm.
so on. You
Hmm.
always have to be super presentable and super formal and just like don't leave. Oh, I'm going for a lunch break. It's been 50 minutes. I need to head back and so on.
Hmm.
Like that is very stressful. We don't
Yeah.
realize because we grew up in this environment of work and very strict rules, controlling harnesses right around
Yeah.
your employees and so on.
Like school is kind of a segue for.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you and you kind of segue into that, and you find it normal. But
Hmm.
now, after working remote, having my own company for a while, working for the acquiring company, which again, very flexible working environment and so on,
Mm.
you realize, damn, that feels very rigid and
Yeah.
stressful in a
Hmm.
sense.
And I don't actually think it's conducive to producing your best work either.
Oh yeah.
Because everyone has ebbs and flows of when they feel they're most creative and when they don't. And when you're self-employed, you can really lean into that and work till midnight one night if you're really feeling it. And other days you just might know that you just won't produce good work. So if you were employed by someone else, you'd be having to go in and like try and probably fail to do good
Yeah.
work, but what you really should be doing is resting. So yeah, I think that's a massive benefit of being self-employed as well.
When do you feel the most creative
So I
and the most
think
productive?
so being a woman, I feel I definitely like to try and plan my work around my cycle if I can. Because around the time of my period, I'll just feel tired. And like, there's this book that I've read called Period Power,
Okay.
which basically tells you that there's certain times in your cycle that you're going to be better at working than others. So,
Interesting.
yeah, so
Or is that any? Is it related strictly to the uh s- mood and stress that you get when you're on your period, or are
mhm.
there any other secret superpowers that come with the period that I don't know about? Why
So
would
many
I?
superpowers. So yeah, it's all to do with your hormones and how they're kind of swinging and balancing out. So basically, just after you come off your period, your hormones will balance out, and you'll feel a lot calmer, and you'll be able to lift more weights at the gym. You'll be able to just feel more clear-headed to do things. So, like for example, I purposely booked this podcast interview on my power window
Okay.
because I knew that that would be give me the best chance of feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's one way that I can feel really creative and good in business. And another way is really cliche, but like after you've been on holiday or had a complete break from the business, I just find that I get kind of raring to go with getting back to work, and
Mm.
it really does kind of like really fill your cup up to take some time off.
How long does that last?
I think
Because
it.
everyone has their own like, you know, and I'm gonna give Nikki away here. She might ask me to cut this out, but she goes on. She gets super depleted and exhausted, like everyone does after working for a longer
Mhm.
period of time, and then she goes for a 2-3 weeks holiday. She's like, yes, I'm so revigorated. I love work, and that lasts 1 week.
Yeah, no, do you know what I was going to say about 1 week as well? And then it becomes a distant memory, and you're like, when can I book the next holiday?
Yeah, okay, that's getting back to,
um,
to it.
but it's a slow process of, um, declining back into stress, isn't
Into
it?
stress, yeah.
Um, but yeah, definitely, giving your brain a rest from social media and from outside influences, and kind of coming back to your why. That always makes me feel a lot more creative.
Oh yeah, I feel that if you don't lose yourself with the challenges of, I mean, it's very easy to lose yourself. So I wouldn't say if you don't lose yourself. It's impossible not to lose yourself and have not have days where you just like exhausted and in the bread of it, just dealing with all of the challenges of your business and this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
completely forget, you know, why you're even doing that or why you started, the motivation, the seed of it. And you can't every single day pick yourself up and remind yourself, because some of these gurus, that's what they say, when you feel down, just remember what you're doing it and do that every single day, and every single day is going to
Mm.
be a good day. That's really,
No,
really
some days you
realistic.
just know are not going to be a good day, and you
Eh,
just have to like
yeah, and
go with it.
some days you just want to be miserable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just be miserable that day,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you can always come back and not fully forget, get amnesia around what is it that you're doing and why are you doing it. If
Mm.
that doesn't happen, then you're okay, because you can always refer back, and that kind of like replenishes you and gives you the boost of, hey, I'm doing this because these reasons.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
um
My business coach, one of the exercises that I had to do with her was writing down, I can't remember what she called it. I think it was like a power list or something like that, of all of the things that I've done in my career that I'm the most proud of. And then if you've ever got a day where you're feeling down, you can look back at that list and remind yourself of, you know, how much experience you've got and what you've done. And yeah.
But it doesn't always work.
No,
right?
it doesn't.
Not every single day will work. There you have days where you like looking at that list, you're like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Take this away. I'm just not feeling it today,
Just
and that's
in my
perfectly
cave.
okay. You don't because I don't want people to think you have a day where you're super miserable and stressed and you feel like doubting yourself, and you look at that list, like, I don't feel anything. I'm pissed off. And then think, oh, there's something wrong with me. Then it means I lost the passion. No, it is normal to have days where you don't care about the whys and the motivations and so on. You just want to finish that day and wake up the next day a bit better. And that's perfectly fine. And yeah, there will also be days when you're a bit cloudy and so on, where you need that list and it empowers you and makes you feel better. But it's not every single day.
No, definitely. I think in entrepreneurship, I think people say that you can have your best possible day and then have your worst possible day the day after. And yeah, it really is such a roller coaster.
Can you remember your worst possible day since you started PR for the People? And can you talk about it? That's an important question.
Yeah. So, yeah, but in my mind, I'm like, there's two possible ones. So, probably the day that I got a letter with someone trying to sue me, was quite scary, and how I think I was quite new into the business as well at that time, and it was also like during the pandemic when everything was heightened as well, because it was, everyone was just online and you didn't have that many other distractions. So my whole personality in life just was my business and it wasn't very healthy. And yeah, so I was like, oh my God, this is the end of my business.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
When you say, oh, I've lost a customer, or this person hang up on me and I didn't transform that lead into, okay, but to get into legal challenges when you're early on your business, that is one of the most scariest things ever. That I think if there's one thing amongst others that could make you call it quits, would be that. Just the being sued by someone.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So luckily I knew I was in the right with it. So I hired a lawyer, and she basically kind of wrote letters back and forwards with the other person's lawyer until it was resolved in our favour. So that was okay, but still spent kind of hundreds of pounds, which at the time I really didn't have on the lawyer. And my business coach at the time said to me, when I told her, I think I called her in tears about it, because it was really horrible as well. Like, the other people that were trying to sue us were posting things about my business on social media, and it was just really nasty.
That is the least thing that you should be doing when you're in a litigious dispute, is basically try to trash talk people on social media. That's outrageous to me, that someone, if you're trying to sue someone, or you're reaching out and trying to get into litigation and so on, the last thing you would do is post about it on social media. It seems.
Yeah. And my business coach at the time said to me, oh, you've not been in business unless you've been sued. I've been sued loads of times.
I haven't been sued once. I hope I never am.
Oh, okay. Well, that made me feel so much better when she said that to me.
Okay. She's lying to you.
Do you not know anyone that's been not actually sued, but had letters?
Well, I mean, there's one thing of being sued for something, infringement and so on. Never been threatened to be sued. We did had our brands, all of our apps, all of our products, we trademark the brands. And one of our apps was called Octo, which is one of the most common. You would not believe how many tech companies are called Octo out there. You know, you have Octopus Energy and so on. Like, there's so many. And we had a couple that saying, oh, you know, you can you change your definition of what you work on so that it doesn't overlap. And we did had one company, I'm not going to give names, where our logo looked like theirs, and but they didn't threaten to sue. They reached out and said, hey, you know, your logo looks very close to ours, although it wasn't intentional. And this is a big company, and said, would be great to, if you can change, we can work together on maybe changing your logo to not be so familiar, because we don't want to confuse customer. But they were like quite gracious about it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. At the time I was just like, this was another female owned business, and I was just so like shocked that they wouldn't come to me and just try and speak to me about their issue first.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a really really stressful time.
But I think people get advised wrongfully. I think when you're a big organization, that also, because this company has a really good reputation. Like, their brand is really loved by developers and this and that. Now I'm giving away too much. But I think they have really good advice on how to deal with these situations, because when you're a big brand, there's more likely that you're going to have people that either blatantly try to copy you or just accidentally make something that looks very similar to something that's trademarked like yours. So, and the last thing you want is for you to be, you know, very aggressive towards that and risk basically getting into a bad reputation or bad light, because, you know, that person might be sharing a lot of the conversation or what happened to the public, and then you're like, oh, look at this big brand that pretends to be all nice and warm and fuzzy, and look at them, how aggressive they are, and so on. So but again, you have to be advised accordingly. And, you know, I have friends that are lawyers, and I work with lawyers and legal advisors. They're great people. But sometimes they can be a bit too aggressive with how they advise you to proceed with things, right? And, you know, maybe that person that was looking to sue you, maybe they're not a terrible person or a bad person or so on, but maybe they had, you know, someone that advised them the wrong way.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never spoken to them, so I would not know. I wanted to reach out to them after the you know, after the whole thing, and kind of just, you know, talk about it, but I was advised not to do that. So I didn't.
Yeah, true. Maybe it's for the best. So what happened afterwards? How did that made you feel when you were dealing with that, and how long into your business was this?
So I think this was, it's hard to remember now. The lockdown days all kind of blur into one. But I think it was around 6 months into launching the business. And so PR for the People started out as a membership subscription platform, teaching people how to do their own PR. So it started out as £50 a month. And you get access to like press contacts and daily emails with press opportunities, and an online course and lots of different things.
But you still have that.
So I have that, but not the same version. So I've just relaunched a similar version, but a much pared down version, which is just the daily emails with press opportunities.
Why is that? Was it too much to deal with?
So I found that the old model, where I was hosting lots of Zoom calls for founders to come to and chat with journalists and things, it was really good. And, you know, I had 200 members all signed up at one time. But then I feel like after the pandemic finished, people got a bit zoomed out and a bit tired of being online all the time, and a bit tired of kind of coming to group Zoom workshops and things. So I would be like booking sometimes, you know, a journalist from Cosmopolitan to come and chat to my members, and no one would show up.
Mm.
And I know during the pandemic there was a spate of lots of online memberships for businesses opening, and then doing really well, and mine was one of them. And then quite a few of them, pretty much all of them that I know have closed now, because I just think that model of coming to a Zoom call every week, people just don't really want that anymore. It's too much of a commitment when you're already a really busy business owner.
Yeah. I've seen that with Misfit Founders community as well, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I had like even monthly community calls and so on, and people just don't show up because, you know, they have other priorities.
Yeah, and I did so many customer feedback surveys, and they were all like, "No, we really want them, we love them," and then just I would be sitting there,
Yeah.
you know, with no one coming to the call sometimes.
How depressing is that? I had that was my tipping point. I was doing the monthly community calls, and you know, I've started, and I've done it a couple of times, maybe 4 months or something, and on the 4th month, no one in the call, just me. I felt so depressed.
Yeah.
It's like never again.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a few times of I kind of kept on trying with that for a while, and then I was like, do you know what, maybe it's just time to try a different way of helping people to do their own PR. So that's when I went more into one-to-one coaching with founders, and then because I still want to try and help people who are just, you know, at the beginning of their journey or have really low budgets, I also do a newsletter which is £10 a month. And you get a newsletter every day with press opportunities. So that's kind of what I'm doing in that area now.
Yeah.
And I think it's really manageable and easy for people to actually work with and action. So I think that's working really well. And it's really funny because for the past few months, I've had so many emails from people that were part of the membership saying, "Oh, would you be able to just send me those daily emails, because they were really good and I really loved them." And it took me so long to twig that that's actually just the part of the membership that people want now, unless they can, you know, they can afford the one-to-one coaching, or for me to do, or they're in the position for me to do the PR for their business.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the evolution of the membership.
Yeah, so sorry, I got us distracted from the topic, because I think what I was interested in was basically how long into your business did this whole ordeal with the lawsuit happen?
Sorry, really went off track there. So I think it was about 6 months in.
6 months.
And I, before I started the business, took out a loan for £6,000 to fund like building the website platform and some marketing, and can't even remember what else I spent that on now, but I've only just finished paying that back. And at the time I was so terrified, because I was like, I've just got a loan for £6,000. If my business now shuts down, how am I ever going to pay that back? I don't have a job. Obviously it was the pandemic as well, so I was just full on panic at the time.
Jesus, I can imagine that. And you're also back in Brighton at that point.
So I went back to live with my mum for a little bit,
and that's double scary, I would say. Why? Because, you know, we all got used to London being the, you know, the hub where you get all the jobs, and I can only imagine, you know, you taking a loan out, being sued, thinking like, I'm gonna have to close down. Oh, but hold on, I'm not even in London anymore to be living there and having job opportunities there. I'm in Brighton, where the market and the landscape is a bit different and so on. That must have been scary.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, luckily I knew I was in the right and had a good lawyer, so it all worked out fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad it did, because otherwise, uh, I wouldn't be having you to help me with Misfit Founders. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm being very egocentric here. Um, why PR for the people? Why name it PR for the people?
So it's always kind of sounded like a bit of a protest to me, because so when I got made redundant, I had the chance to kind of sit and think about the PR industry and kind of what I wanted to do, and I noticed that loads of the brands that I worked with were only people that had loads of money or loads of budget to kind of get those PR agencies and get features.
It's always been to me like this. Oh, if you get to the point where you can afford PR, you made it.
Yeah, and that's so backwards, because the stories that need telling are often of people that don't have that budget behind them, or people that are kind of marginalized by society. So I really wanted to create a service that would help more people get featured in the media, and kind of diversify the voices that we hear from in the media as well. Because I think, so many people just think like, oh, I could never do PR because I'm not big enough, or I can't afford it. But I want people to know that you can, you can do your own PR easily. So, yeah.
That's a really good name. It stuck with me so quickly. PR for the people, and it sounds like you have a really awesome mission with it, and it sounds like you're achieving that with the newsletter and the coaching stuff and such. As with everything, doing a job for someone will cost money, because your time costs money. So whether you invest 2 hours or 5 hours and so on, things will cost money. So it is what it is. But just being able to also help through other means, I think that's very valuable. And important.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much value in hiring a professional, obviously, but so many people just aren't in that position. So I just want people to know that there is another way as well, and you don't have to go through a PR agency. Like, journalists actually love speaking to business owners and founders directly, because it's kind of that authentic relationship.
What was the biggest win for you so far as a founder? In this very short period of founder, because you started your company in you said 2021?
So like 3 years.
3 years, yeah. So you've been a founder for 3 years. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to tell me what was the biggest win that you ever had in these 3 years.
So I think getting featured in Forbes was.
Wait a minute, you've been featured in Forbes? Where's my feature in Forbes?
It's coming.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was obviously a massive highlight. So that was kind of an article about the work that we were doing in making the PR industry more inclusive and diverse, because so many of the articles that you actually read in the news are placed by PR agencies, and I don't think that many people...
You're telling me that my entire life was a lie so far?
I don't think many people realise that.
Interesting.
That, so many trends and things come from PR agencies.
So you're the puppeteers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did that affected your business, if any?
Yeah, so it had an amazing impact, and I love talking about this because I think it obviously like proves the effects of PR. So we had a book publisher from America reach out to us and ask if we wanted to write a book, because they'd read the article.
Interesting.
We had a TV producer reach out to us, and we also had like loads of new potential clients as well. So yeah, especially the American-based book editor reaching out to us was just wild, because she would never ever have come across us like normally. So I just think that getting press coverage for your business just opens the door for so many more people to find out about you.
Sounds like partnerships as a very probably the low hanging fruit over there with PR.
Say that
So
again, sorry.
so with PR, the low hanging fruit of a reward is partnerships. As in, it sounds like partnerships are the first thing that you get when when you put yourself out there and so on.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just get.
probably for your business as well is useful. And actually, I had the reason why I kind of believe in PR and believe in you and what you do is that in our industry we had someone that was had their product featured in TechCrunch, and I might have mentioned this, and they got quite significant traffic and installations and new customers from that. And I'm like, oh, actually, these work. I'm surprised. Because I also had friends that were like, I tried PR, paid for PR, those
That's not
pay,
PR if you've
yeah,
paid for it.
pay for listicles or
That's advertising.
just for how you call it, automated linking in various publications that have zero traffic and so on. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, it didn't work.
surprise. Yeah, I think you can be lucky with those kind of those links that you get where sometimes you just get the right publication at the right time and it really kind of skyrockets your audience. Or like for example, if you get a TV feature that broadcasts you to millions of people,
Yeah.
and that can completely change your business overnight. Like I was working with a dog cafe in Kensington about a year ago, and they got featured on BBC London, and obviously that's seen by millions of people. So they were completely booked up at the weekends, and yeah, it can really change your business overnight. But then also the other side of it is building up your reputation over time, and people reading about you here and there, and like suddenly they're like, oh, I've actually listened to him on a podcast, and oh, I see he's doing an event here, and oh, he's featured in this magazine, and that kind of builds your reputation.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And it's also kind of like, I think, like with creating content and creating an audience and so on, it takes time for you to see significant, kind of like, I would say, yeah, you can have these hits like, oh, publication here, and all of a sudden overnight you're a celebrity, or you're the best place to sell stuff, right? But it also takes time. Being this publication, people see you there, and building kind of like a profile online. At least that's my impression of it, in a sense.
Yeah, it's like with anything good, it's
Unless you
takes
get me
time.
into Forbes, then I'll be famous like that.
That's what we're aiming for, definitely.
So, because our audience here at Misfit Founders are aspiring founders, startup founders, very very early on type of entrepreneurs, what would be an advice for piece of advice for founders out there that maybe are not thinking of doing PR because they have this concept that oh, well, PR is expensive and so on. What can they do to start building their brand reputation without costing, let's say, an arm and a leg of, let's say, having to hire the most prestigious PR company in the country or something like that? What can they do to get started with very little to no cost?
So the first thing that you can do is look at a hashtag on Twitter called journo requests. And that is basically, most journalists hang out on Twitter, and they will post when they're looking to feature someone in their articles. So if you just search journo request on Twitter, you will find lots of different interesting call outs for different people. And yeah, I use some of those in my newsletter, and also like find them in lots of different places as well. Like there's Facebook groups, and I get journalists coming to me directly with opportunities. And but yeah, I would say looking on Twitter at that, and you'll just see, oh, hang on a minute, journalists are really looking for people every day to feature. So
Interesting.
I might as well be one of them.
Yeah, you see, I didn't knew that as either, and I feel that probably more people should know the fact that journalists are out, they reach out and looking for people as well, and it's not that like this super closed, tight knit group, exclusive society that no one can go in. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is very competitive because, you know, the world's on Twitter, and all of the PR agencies are on Twitter. But I've had clients and, you know, people that I've worked with featured in the Guardian, the Telegraph, BBC. Like people are always getting features. Actually, the Metro article is from a journo request that you're going to be featured in.
Yes, we're not gonna give it away, okay? No, that is, you see, if you, I think the idea is, if you're resourceful and in a sense have an interesting story and can position yourself, and this is one of the things that I've said to so many people in the past, because this is how I've got the most benefit from partnerships and so on. Make yourself seen in the places where the people that you want to be seen by exist. I think that stands true at any point.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
It's not easy, but you know, with places like LinkedIn and so on, where you know you can have connections, you can post stuff and get seen, and constantly posting and being active and so on, and like starts ingraining a certain image of you in the audience or the partners or the prospects that you're looking to do that by having them in your network and seeing all of this stuff that you're generating. And then eventually, once you know they're hot enough, warm enough of leads, you can convert a lot better.
Definitely. I think I was saying to you earlier that lots of people underestimate the power of micro PR opportunities, and they kind of go straight for the, you know, I want to be featured in Cosmo or Forbes. But actually, where their core customers are hanging out might not be Forbes or Cosmo. It might be local co-working spaces, or it might be, you know, very niche podcasts in their industry. So there, if you actually want to speak to your customers, you're better off researching where do your target customers consume their media, and then trying to get featured there. It might not be your traditional magazines, like it might be newsletters, it might be, you know, radio shows. Yeah, it's kind of thinking outside the box as to where you want to be featured.
Yeah, true. I'm curious. What's the end game here? Is there even an end game for Lucy from PR for the People?
Oh, in terms of business, I thought you meant for you as my client.
No, I wouldn't discuss that necessarily on podcast unless people want to see that, and in which we might just need to have a
I think we
workshop,
should.
a public workshop and stuff.
Yeah.
But no, as in currently with PR for the People, is this everything that you've ever envisioned and dreamed of in terms of owning a business? How does the future look like for you? Is this what it is, or do you have other aspirations that you started baking?
Yeah, so I think I'd always like more time to be able to create content. So I do lots of interviews and tips about PR on my Instagram, but I'd love the time to be able to do, you know, I'd love to be able to do a podcast where I interview different journalists and media people, because the industry is changing all the time and so fast that, you know, yeah, it's like trying to keep up with it is kind of tricky sometimes, and the only way is by actually speaking to the journalists that are that are writing for these publications. I'm also in the process of launching a magazine as well, which like my passion is still writing and journalism.
Mm.
So yeah, that will be, the website should be finished quite soon. It's going to be called the Dream Magazine.
Dream magazine.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was expecting power, the power of PR, something like
No,
that.
no. So I want it to be like a lifestyle magazine,
Ah,
and
okay.
because yeah, independent media is kind of dying a bit at the moment. So so there's so many magazines that I've loved that have shut in the past kind of few
Mm.
years. So I really want to start a platform where people can actually, get published, um and it's not kind of influenced by money or anything. It's not for profit. It's just a platform that people can come and read good articles.
Interesting.
Mm.
I'm curious to see how you build that. Um,
I mean, it's interesting because I have no way of making money from it at the moment. It's just purely a creative outlet.
but start from that. I mean, it's
Hmm.
perfectly fine. Like, not everything needs to start from a, rational business concept and so on. It can be just like, I love this. I love talking about this. Starting it, and
Hmm.
later down the road, I always, maybe I'm naive, but I think that starting from a place of passion will always end up in good places, in a good destination, in a sense.
It feels really nice to do because I'm not pressured because I'm not thinking about how I'm going to make money from it.
Mm.
But also at the same time, sometimes I'm like, what am I doing working on this? Um, but yeah, that's something that I would really love to get off the ground. And then also just to grow my um, the newsletter, so that could be the main focus of helping people, and really just connect loads of people with journalists, because that's what I love doing, and getting their stories told.
It sounds like a very well established plan. I was waiting for, like, well, I'm doing this. That's great, but who knows? It seems like you have your life sorted. Okay, okay, I
I
understand.
know that I don't want a traditional big PR agency. I think,
Okay,
yeah, I want to do other things that are kind of slightly more creative.
okay. I mean, that's perfectly fine, and I think more people should think like that and not follow the status quo of, oh, well, I've done this thing, now I need to do a better, bigger thing, better, not better, but
Mm.
bigger thing, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And I often tell myself that because, coming from building and selling a B2B SaaS business and now getting into the creative space, um, I'm probably never going to make as much money as B2B, you know, but it satisfies me, my soul,
Mm-hmm.
and my heart, and
Yeah.
my creative thirst.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's okay.
Definitely. I think that's more important.
Yeah. So what makes you a misfit? What makes you a misfit founder? Because you've been in the PR. You seem like a fit, right? You've been in the PR world for ages now.
Mm-hmm.
You master it. You're on the right track with a lot of things. What makes you a misfit?
So I think it's that I'm giving away the secrets of the PR industry to empower people.
Oopsie.
Because yeah, so there's so obviously so many people go
Mm.
from working in PR and they then start their own agencies, and the PR people are really funny about sharing their press contacts, and um,
Is that because that's the UVP in many cases for some of these agencies, as in that's the selling point? It's like, well, I have all the connections and the
mm,
contacts and the relationships, and that's why you're paying me.
um, yes and no. So it did used to be like that you just have your kind of little black book full of contacts.
Mm.
But now social media is around. Pretty much all journalists have their email address in their bio on Twitter, or you can DM them and chat to them that way. So it is a lot more accessible than it used to be. And yeah, I'm trying to just diversify who gets featured in the media.
But I feel that that's an interesting point, because in other industries, you have that has already happened. The openness, the open sourcing, a lot of this stuff, this information, and so on. So, so does that make you an outcast of the PR world? They're like, this Lucy from PR for the people is giving out all of these trade secrets. She's an outcast, exile.
I hope not. No, I don't think so, because I still obviously do client work as well, and I work for different smaller agencies on like an ad hoc basis. And I think people are realizing more and more that, you know, that going through a PR agency is not the only way to get featured. I think sometimes one of the best things you can do is think about the people that you already know and think, you know, oh, my friend's got a podcast, why don't I ask him to be on it?
Yeah.
Or my friend's got a newsletter, why don't I see if I can, you know, write something for that? And yeah, sorry, I forgot your question again.
I was wondering if you ever had someone, a peer of yours, a PR person, come in and say, ranting, why are you giving all of this stuff away for free or for so cheap? Why are you making it accessible? This is our work here. We should keep it to ourselves. That's what we're charging money for, and so on. Did you have any?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I've never had that. Because I think there will always be a place definitely for PR agencies and paid, and, you know, PR professionals, because, you know, it is really time consuming, and it is a really skilled job as well. So I think there will always be a place for those companies as well. It's just we need to make sure that we're also letting in the little guys.
Yeah, very true. You're definitely on an inspiring journey with making PR accessible for the people. And I'm not just saying that because I'm your customer. You know how this ends. 3 questions.
Yeah, I love these questions.
Quote that you live by. And I say you know because you've been watching every single episode and preparing, wordsmithing the titles for the podcast and so on. So you're very close to everything that's happening here. It must be weird to be on the other side.
Yeah, it is weird. Dreading watching myself back, but
It's fine. I'll review it and make a title for you.
Okay, yeah, you can do that
one. Quote that you live by.
Yeah, so the quote that I live by, my favorite quote is, "If not now, then when?" Because, yeah, as I said, I grew up kind of watching my parents kind of say one day they'll try something new, and they never did. And I was pushed to try something new, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I just think, yeah, if you can with something that you've been thinking about, just go for it, because yeah, there's no greater time like the present.
Yeah, agree. Okay. That gives me just like so many flashbacks of not acting and so on. So that's why I'm like, you have to. Book.
So my favorite book is not actually a business book, called The Chimp Paradox, and it's essentially about, it's written by a neurosurgeon who trains athletes in kind of high performance, but it's about how you can apply his theories to everyday life. And it's basically saying that you shouldn't always trust your emotions, because your emotions are pre-built in by kind of physiological predispositions that are kind of from our ancestry and how our bodies are built. So yeah, it's basically saying that you shouldn't always trust your emotions, and you should take a step back before you kind of act. There's a lot more in the book, but I just feel like definitely in the first 6 months of my business, I was very emotional with it and very reactive. And if, if I had a customer cancel their membership, or if I had, getting sued, I would react so emotionally to it and just be like devastated. And I really feel that now, 3 years in, I've learned to not be quite as emotional with it.
Quite as chimpy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, listening to your inner
Chimpy.
chimp.
Your inner chimp.
Yeah.
Chimpy. I'm gonna tell this to Nikki and say, hey, because I'm the one emotional and reactive.
Oh, it's the best book, honestly. Like, I think everyone should read it.
I'll definitely need to, but I'll also tell Nikki, hey, whenever I'm being reactive or emotional, just tell me to stop being chimpy. That's awesome. And a good habit that you advocate for.
So in business, I would say a good habit to have is having hobbies that get you completely in flow state and out of your kind of business brain. So I have like my house is a bit of a joke. So I've got like roller skates, roller blades. I've just taken up pole dancing as a sport. I go to the gym.
Taking out what?
Pole dancing.
Oh, pole dancing. Okay.
Yeah.
I understood something dog dancing, and I'm like, okay, pole dancing. Okay. You go to the gym.
And yeah, so I have lots of different activities that I love doing that completely take.
When do you have time to work?
I find the time. But I just think, yeah, otherwise your business can really consume you, and it's really hard to switch off. So I think it's so important to make time for those other things in your life.
Oh yeah, and I call my dogs my therapy sessions as well, and like detached session, because like if I'm in the midst of it and I feel like I'm getting dazed and just confused of too many things happening and stressed, I just break, just cuddle with the dogs for a bit, and or go for a walk, take them for a walk, and it just does miracles. And sport as well, with training, with exercising as well. It's just such an amazing time to just be somewhere and do something that has nothing to do with, one, the environment that you exist in, and two, the stuff that consume you all the time. It's just refreshing to me.
Definitely.
So yeah, so the advice here is take pole dancing.
Yeah,
everyone should be pole dancing. Everyone should stop being chimpy, and yeah, that's really good advice. Well, I really appreciate being part of this, and thank you for sharing your journey. I know that we just scratched the surface of a lot of these things. We'll come back for volume 2 of Lucy, PR for the people. And no, I appreciate you chatting with me.
Oh no, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
In your lovely studio.
This crazy studio.